We're probably not as good on the line of scrimmage as we have been in the last 3 to 4 years. That's what Kirby Smart had to say after Georgia's G-Day scrimmage. And I'll be honest, if you're a Georgia fan, that's one of the last things that you want to hear. Because as we all know, if Georgia doesn't win a national championship, to a lot of people, it's a disappointing season, right? It's over with. No one cares. It's national championship or bust. And as we know, you're not winning a national championship in today's era of college football if you are not dominant on the line of scrimmage. I'm talking about both the offensive line and the defensive line. If you go back and look at Georgia's 2021 and 2022 national championships, they were elite at both. They had obviously one of the best defensive lines really in college football history in 2021. They had Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith around again in 2022. The offensive line was full of multi-year starters, multiple first-round guys, right? So they were elite on the line of scrimmage, and Kirby Smart is saying now, hey, I don't think we're as good there as we have been in the past 3 or 4 years. That's something that has to improve, and he knows it. He spoke about that a lot after the scrimmage, and it's something that he's been alluding to basically all spring. He knows they've got to get better on the offensive line. He knows that they're replacing several multi-year starters and a center, right? He knows on the defensive line they don't have Warren Brinson back. They don't have Nazir Stackhouse, Michael Williams. So they're replacing a lot of guys on both sides of the football there. And, if anyone knows how important the trenches are, it's Kirby Smart, right? We know it's important to have quarterback play, right? But, the last 2 national championship teams, J.J. McCarthy was good. I wouldn't say he was elite. I know he was a first-round pick, but they didn't need him to go out there and win games with his arm and win the national championship, right? Will Howard got better as the year went on, but Will Howard, as good as he played in the playoffs, he's not the reason they won the national championship, right? So you have to have, good quarterback play, good to great. You don't need elite quarterback play. What you need is to be elite in the trenches. And yes, you probably need to have a couple of stable running backs. You need to have playmakers on the outside, and you need to have guys at linebacker and in the secondary who can make plays. But at the end of the day, this is still a game in the trenches. It's about power. It's about strength. It's about moving guys backwards on both sides. And Georgia, they've got to get better there. Here are more quotes from Kirby. He said, we've got great size up there. I think when you look across the teams we play, the upper echelon, best teams in our conference, they win with the line of scrimmage. We're probably not as good on the line of scrimmage as we have been in the last 3 to 4 years. That's the quote that really stood out to me. He said, now we've got time to get there, and we've got time to get there, and we've got to get there, It's just hard because you've got less defensive linemen and offensive linemen that we've ever had before, and we seem younger. He's not wrong there. They took a lot of offensive linemen in the last 2 recruiting cycles, and there's a lot of defensive linemen from that 24 class that need to start emerging in year 2. He said we've had a void that we knew was coming with Dylan Fairchild, Jared Wilson, Tate Ratledge, and Xavier Truss that have been here on the offensive line. It's been coming for a while, so we've had to try to make up for it and put the right kind of kids in those shoes but they're not where those kids were yet. Then the defensive line, Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse, Michael Williams, Tyingram Dawkins, a guy that I kind of blanked on a couple minutes ago. There's a lot of guys leaving out of that room. So there's a lot of big bodies for us that had to be replaced, and we are not where we need to be on the line of scrimmage. That's the big takeaway. We're not where we need to be, and that's the most important part outside of quarterback, right? You can't have a guy turning the ball over left and right. So you have to have a good to great quarterback if you want to win it all, which is the only thing Georgia fans care about, right? We're not talking about a winning season. We're not talking about what do they have to do to beat Florida, to beat Auburn, to beat Tennessee, to beat Alabama? No, it's championship or bust, right? And if you're not there on the line of scrimmage, it's going to be really tough to do that. Now, there are guys there who have an opportunity to step in and be a starter and be that next type of guy, but they've got to do it, and they've got to stay healthy, which is something that they just weren't last year on the offensive line, especially against Ole Miss. That group, Georgia's offensive line, got absolutely bullied all game long. Ernest Green had a bad day. Monroe Freeling had a bad day on the outside. Carson Beck had no shot in that game because the offensive line had their worst performance of the season. And they got beat pretty good. When they lose the line of scrimmage, oftentimes they lose the football game. Even against Kentucky, they won that game. They barely won that game on the road, but Kentucky would, play pound per pound with them. They matched Georgia in the trenches. I think you give Georgia slightly the edge because they won the game, but that was tough. And they play certain teams better. They always beat Tennessee in the trenches. They just about beat Auburn every time in the trenches. Florida, right? I think Georgia Tech matched up really well with the Dogs in the trenches. I mean, they ran the ball really well, and there were times when Georgia was unable to get something going against the run. And we've talked about that too. You have to establish a run game. So the offensive line, they weren't all that great last year. So it's not like they're replacing, the best offensive line in football. There will be new faces, not all across the board. Drew Bobo has played a lot. He'll be at center. Monroe Freeling has experience. Ernest Green has experience. Micah Morris has experience, right? So they're not throwing in a bunch of scrubs that haven't played, and they're not throwing in a bunch of freshmen. They're throwing in guys who, need more experience, but they have some already, and that will help them. But they've got to build a chemistry together, like the last group did. Dylan Fairchild, Jared Wilson, Tate Ratledge, they were familiar with each other. Xavier Truss had been on the team for like 20 years, it felt like, right? So they knew how to play with each other. And while it wasn't always great, they still had chemistry that helped them, especially against Texas down the stretch, right? And, against Tennessee and against Florida and against big teams, even against Georgia Tech in that second half for sure, when they led the comeback. The offensive line really stepped up. And a big reason why is because those guys had chemistry together. And this group has to develop that. There's no doubt about it. And he also said, but I'm very pleased with the kids we have. I'm just not pleased with where we are. We have to get better. And a lot of this is just classic Kirby, right? Just saying, hey, we're not as good here. We're not as good here. We've got to get better here. Got to get better there. It's just what he does. He never comes out and talks to the media and says, we're great right here. We're outstanding here. I feel really comfortable with where we are here, here, and here. It's never like that. It's always, we've got to get better. And that's that championship mindset. That's, you're either elite or you're not. And Georgia's not elite on the offensive line or the defensive line. They're not elite at quarterback. They're not elite at a lot of places. Now, again, there's still time to get better. It was just the spring. The season didn't start for 5 more months, right? Now, I know they've got some time off here that is not necessarily good for the Georgia Bulldogs because, they got not get in trouble here. I hate that I even have to say that, but every year when the team gets an extended amount of time off, that you always got to keep your eye on it. So if they stay healthy, they stay out of trouble, and they can continue to progress and keep working out hard and adding more muscle and getting in shape this summer over the next few months, this group could be better than where they are right now. And I'm talking about both the offensive and the defensive line. On the defensive line, you don't want to count on true freshman Elijah Griffin to come in and be the savior, right? They need Nnamdi Ogboko to step up in the middle, take on those double teams, and make things easier for the linebacking crew, which could be elite. That's probably an elite group behind them. Makes it easier for those elite players to make even more plays. Jordan Thomas is a guy that I noticed a little bit during G-Day. Those guys they do a good job of getting their paws up and batting down balls at the line of scrimmage, but they still need more guys to emerge. Kristen Miller, if he can take a step forward, I think he could be one of the best defensive linemen in the SEC. I think Jordan Hall, if he's healthy, has a chance to be one of the best in the SEC. But we're talking about ifs, too many ifs, right? If this happens, this guy could be great. If this happens, this other guy could emerge and be a star, right? They've got to go out and do it. It starts with being healthy. I'm talking about both sides of the line of scrimmage right now, right? They were banged up on both sides last year and had to play, musical chairs, right? Revolving door, whatever you want to call it. They got to stay healthy, and they got to keep getting better. Because right now, Kirby Smart's saying we're not where we need to be on both sides. And he said that basically all spring, right? That's not, neither one is a position group where he's, real thrilled with. He says, I like the guys we have, but those guys have to do it. They've got to come out and earn those starting jobs. They have to come out game one, I think, against Marshall, whoever, and they've got to play well, or else they might lose that spot, So they're still trying to figure out the best 5 on the offensive line and which guys can create the most havoc on the defensive line. But right now, it does seem that Kirby Smart is, still concerned about where they are in the trenches, and he has no problem saying, hey, we're just not as good there as we have been over the past 3 or 4 years. Not what you want to hear as a Georgia fan, but again, it's still early. The season doesn't start next week, right? So there's still plenty of time for these guys to get better and prove everyone wrong, including myself, that they can be an elite unit. That's what they need to be if they want to win a national championship. I know that for sure. Thanks for watching. You can read more about this over on Dawg Post. Make sure you're heading over to the website to read about everything we've got related to the team, recruiting, all of it. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you on the website.